Okay, all you St. Louis Cardinal fans out there, let's see what your trivia is like. Do you know the name of the pitcher who hurled a no-hitter in his first start? He won 27 games the next season. Do you know that person? You're going to find out who it is on St. Louis in Tune. Welcome to St. Louis in Tune, and thank you for joining us for fresh perspectives on issues and events with experts, community leaders, and everyday people who make a difference in shaping our society and world. I'm Arnold Stricker, along with co-host Mark Langston. Mark?
It's great to be here. It's going to be a fun show today.
It is.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a Cardinal baseball fan, and if you're not, you're still going to have a fun time today because our guests are just... They've lived Cardinal baseball. They've lived Cardinal baseball. But first of all, we're going to return to civility. Write down all the things that you've accomplished within a given period of time. Make sure to include things you've done for others. It doesn't matter how small a task was. You'll feel great. Because a lot of times, you get to a point in life where maybe you're a little down. And I would not use the word depressed, but sometimes things ebb and flow at different times of life. There's a book that's called The Stages of a Man's Life. And things ebb and flow. There's even the stages of a woman's life. Mark's laughing back there.
I know.
But things do ebb and flow. And when you're down, it's always good. Write those things down that you've accomplished within a given period of time because it really helps gain a perspective on life and where you are and what you've done.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's important.
I agree. I have nothing else. I have got nothing.
You got nothing to say to that?
I just want to say I agree.
Okay,
yeah,
you agree with that.
I do.
I know our guests agree with that because they've done a whole lifetime of this kind of stuff. A lifelong Cardinal fan, Robert L. Tiemann, saw his first Stan Musial home run in 1957, and as an award-winning baseball historian, he has written several books and has contributed to and edited many journals for the Society of American Baseball Research. He's also the author of 64 Cardinals and co-author of 10 Rings, Stories of the St. Louis Cardinals World Championship. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
And Ron Jacober, my favorite sports broadcast announcer, has covered sports on radio and television for 47 years. He has broadcast Cardinal baseball, Blues hockey, college basketball on ESPN, college football, hundreds of soccer games, and covered the Olympics for CBS Radio. Yeah. Longtime sports director for KMOX Radio. He's a member of the St. Louis Radio Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Media Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame.
Holy
And you're a member of the St. Louis in Tune Hall of Fame. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you very much. I laugh at that because people ask me about those things, and I say, yeah, it's nice. You're in the business for so many years, they're going to give you awards. But I read a...
That's not true, Rod.
I read a guy one time he wrote a story called In the Box. And he said, when you die, all the stuff off the walls, it's going to go in a box. And who will care at that point? It's nice, but I don't take it too seriously.
It shows that both of you have taken what you've done in your lives very seriously. And you gave it your all, and which are part of the accolades. And this is the second edition, folks. It's called Immortal Moments in Cardinals History, Famous and Forgotten Highlights of the St. Louis Cardinals. Second edition, so it's been updated with some pictures, with some late things. And Bob, tell us a little bit more about what's been updated in the book.
Yeah.
The first edition came out in 2016, so it only went up through 2015. So we've put in a few things. The day that Matt Carpenter got 3 homers and 2 doubles in Wrigley Field. That was 2018. We put that in. When Adam Wainwright pitched a complete game during the COVID season, and he and Yachty put on masks so they could brace on the on the mound.
Right.
The only people clapping were the visiting Cleveland Indians because everybody else was cardboard cutouts. That's the moment that we remember.
Right. Forgot about it.
Albert's last big game here in St. Louis is fantastic finish. Those are some of the things that we've added.
Wow. And Ron, you've done another, what I would call prelude to this or introduction.
Yeah. I worked with Bob on 3 books now. He's a master researcher. I call him a historical geek. And I think it's a compliment.
I'll take it as a compliment.
This guy spends hours at the library looking at microfilm, for God's sakes. And he lectures at Cooperstown on baseball in the 1880s. Who would do that? But Bob does it.
Yeah, we get an audience and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I see a cover like this, and when I see the title, Famous and Forgotten Highlights of the St. Louis Cardinals, what do you consider to be the most forgotten highlights of the Cardinals?
The book starts in 1882, so that's pretty much all.
We've all forgotten that.
All forgotten.
Yeah, right.
And there's 1911, the Cardinals were traveling from Philadelphia to Boston, and they were in a train wreck in the
Really?
pre-dawn hours, and their car was one of the few that was not wrecked. So they spent the morning up till the dawn helping rescue people who were injured.
Yeah, they were first responders, in effect.
Seriously?
The manager got them off the train, and they helped people out of the cars that were turned over and things like that.
And when was that again?
1911.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's great.
I had never heard that story.
That's the idea. There are things in there that you've never heard of that turned out to be immortal because of what they did. But there's a lot in there that not everybody, most Cardinal fans are aware of, but a lot that are not, especially in the earlier days, right, Bob?
I think about what I opened the show up with was this discussion about Ted Breitenstein. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
That's
German
from my German
Yes.
class in University City High School. So thank you, Herr Klein. But he was called up from the minors, started the first game on the final day of a doubleheader through a no-hitter against Louisville, won 27 games. I've never heard of this guy. You hear about the Daffy and Dizzy Dean, and my mom watched them, Medwick, the Gas House Gang, that whole crew. But this is like way before, like when they were the Browns, maybe?
Yes, they were the Browns. They started as the Browns, and they were owned by a very colorful and rather controversial guy named Chris von der Ahe. And he went bankrupt, and the team got bought by new ownership who wanted to change the culture. So they changed the color of the socks from brown to red. And after a year of everybody called them the Perfectos for some reason. All the sports writers agreed we'll call them the Cardinals. So that was 1900 when they changed the name.
Yeah, Bob Brake tells the story. We don't know how accurate it is because I got to know Bob pretty well, and he could make things up. But he said a woman said, "What a beautiful color of cardinal that is," and one of the Cardinal owners said, "It's a good idea." So that's why they came up with the birds on the bat, which turns out to be one of the more iconic sports logos in professional sports, not just baseball, but professional sports.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
The birds on the bat.
Oh, yeah.
Well, absolutely one of my favorites.
They didn't actually adopt the birds on the bat till 1922.
Yeah.
So
Fascinating.
they were called the Cardinals long before they were associated with birds. I've even seen sports cartoons where the Cardinals are depicted as Catholic prelates. Wearing miters.
Of course. Okay. Great. We got a lot of Catholics in St. Louis, but I don't know.
You have to have the cardinal religion if you're going to be in St. Louis.
That's right.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
Opening day is a holy day of obligation. And there's no question about that.
Now,
It is. It should be a day off, I think.
it should be in St. Louis. Yeah,
should,
absolutely.
yeah.
More of a holiday, right?
No question about it.
Now, Ron mentioned, Bob, that you spent years and years going through microfilm and microfiche, and probably doing, even before that, getting the hard books and going through old newspapers and things like that. When did that start for you? What was this? Were you a historian at heart from when you were a teenager?
I was a historian at heart, went and got a degree in history, majored in history. But in those days, you couldn't be a historian of baseball academically. But I was just hooked. So I would go down, and I wanted to get all the games, just which games counted, which games didn't, which was mostly involved controversies from the 19th century. The only place to do that was in the library. Built big bound volumes of newspapers or microfilms. And so I wasted away my youth, basically, doing that sort of thing.
By the way.
You stayed out of trouble?
More or less, yeah.
Was that at Cooperstown you did that, or was that here at the Central Library here?
That was mostly in California, where I was living at the time. And then I moved back to St. Louis when I was in my early 30s and kept doing it through that.
Okay.
So.
And you started, I need to put this down into a book because nobody's got any information on this. Is that what you did?
It was mostly to distribute to the people that were doing the encyclopedias, the first baseball encyclopedias.
Okay.
I got to know those guys pretty well. And there was no thought of a book, dreams of a book, but nobody, publishers, until I got hooked up with Reedy Press in the early 2000s. So
there's a group called Society of American Baseball Research, and that's what Bob's really involved with.
But then didn't they put out books?
They do, but the time they didn't.
Really?
Now they put out lots of e-books that you can get printed versions, but mostly it's just for download.
I like the Reedy Press book, though, that you guys did, because I can hold it in my hand. Yeah. I like the pictures.
Right.
Pictures are
It's
great.
a lot. I like.
Yeah, this is our third hardcover coffee table type book. And the beauty of these books, Reedy Press does a great job getting the photos.
Yes.
There's over 200 pictures in there. And these are not easy to acquire.
No, some of these are rare.
They have to buy a lot of them. Some are public domain, but I remember when we did 64 Cardinals, Bob and I were doing a book signing at St. Louis County Library, and there was a Cardinal front office guy there, and he came up to me afterwards and said, "Where did you get all these pictures?" And I said, they had to buy them. Oh, okay. He thought we stole them from somebody.
No, you guys didn't steal them. And by the way, folks, I reposted that 64 Cardinals interview that I did with Bob. That was a couple of years ago, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and that was a fun time. So you can go back and listen to that at stlntune.com. Ron, when did you get your start in broadcasting? How did that happen?
This is a long story. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
It's a totally accidental career. I went to SIU Carbondale, majored in journalism. My first job out of college and out of the Army was with the Auto Club of Missouri in public relations. And I was a young pup, and I was calling on radio stations in September in the area with a public service campaign, Schools Open, Drive Safely. And I was in Belleville at a station called WIBV. And the general manager said, "You did some radio work in college, didn't you?" I said, "I had one-hour course as a lark. How would you like a part-time job?" I said, "When?" He said, "How about tonight?" I didn't do it tonight, but I came home and talked to my wife, and I wound up working over there for 2 years, almost 2 years, on weekends. And working the other job 5 days. I was working 7 days a week. And the legendary Bob Hardy, the news guy in St. Louis, lived over there. And he heard me, and he called me. He said, I was ready to say, "I can't do this. I can't do 7 days a week anymore." And he said, "We're looking for a part-time guy at KMOX. Would you be interested?" That was like God calling me. So that's how that happened. And I went to work part-time again on weekends at KMOX. And it didn't take too long before they offered me a full-time thing. But the weird part of all that is I was a gopher. There was so much talent at KMOX, especially in sports in those days. I was just a staff announcer. I would go where they pointed me. And Jay Randolph had been there and went to Channel 5. And I called him one day and said, "Jay, I'm really, this is a great radio station, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm frustrated. If you hear anything, let me know." He said, "Oh, my God, we're looking to hire another sports guy at Channel 5. When can you come over for an audition?" I said, "You tell me." He said, "How about 10:30 tonight?" So I went over after the 10 o'clock news. They set me down, and I did a sportscast, and they hired me the next day. And I went back to Bob Hyland, the legendary Robert Hyland. He gave him 2 weeks' notice. He gave me 30 minutes to get out of the building and make sure I didn't take the Rolodex, because the Rolodex in sports in those days had all the phone numbers of all the high sports people in the country.
Wow.
And so that's how it started. And I wound up spending 18 years at Channel 5 and then almost 30 at KMOX. And that's how it started. A total accident. If you asked me when I got out of college, you're going to do, I said, "You got to be kidding me." But I really enjoyed it.
That's a great story. I remember seeing you on Channel 5. I think that was my first exposure to your career, and then listened to you on the Sports Open line on KMOX later on.
I could really write. They always told me every place I worked, you're the best writer in the building. So I've always enjoyed writing, and that's why this has been so much fun.
Wow.
I started at 1260 WIBV.
Did you really?
I did.
You really? Yeah.
I did.
A guy named Norm Greenberg.
Yeah, Norm Greenberg was our general manager.
Norm Greenberg said, "How would you like a part-time job?"
I don't know if he owned the place or not.
He didn't know.
I don't think he did it. Yeah.
No, he didn't know it. He was a general manager.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
For years he was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of very famous people went through there.
Yeah, they did. You're right about that.
You know,
it was a good little station. It really was.
It really was. Yeah.
But I tell young people all the time, it's a total accident. So just you got to roll with it and take life as it comes. And in my case, I got very lucky because a few people opened doors for me. He did, Jay Randolph, Bob Hyland, and it goes on from there. So that's how it all happened, almost a half a century.
Wow.
And I was lucky because I was one of those guys that stayed in the same market. I had chances to leave. I had a chance to go to Chicago and San Francisco and all that, but we were happy here. Our kids loved the schools here. And if you're going to do sports in St. Louis in those days, KMOX was the place to be.
Ron, are you from St. Louis?
I'm from Highland, Illinois,
okay,
which is 30 miles east of this small little German community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it happened. I tell young people all the time, it's a total accident. But if the door is open, you got to walk through it, and you have to perform.
That's right.
Because I tell a lot of interns, a lot of young people that I hired or came through, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. Like Joe Buck.
Yeah.
I was on a panel with Joe some time ago, and I said, I take credit for Joe's success. And he gives me part of his salary too. When he signed with ESPN, it was something like $16-17 million. I mean, he's in some ways he's more talented than Jack.
Yeah.
Jack was different. They're different, total different personalities. Jack was a radio guy, and Joe is a TV guy. Jack tried to do television. He left KMOX to go to CBS to do a show called Grandstand.
Okay.
And it was scripted, and it's just not Jack. And it just didn't work. I really wanted the Cardinal job when he left. And they interviewed me, and they told me I finished second, but I think they told everybody they finished second. And then Jack came back after 1 year at CBS television and finished his career. I got to know Jack really well late in his life. Maybe the brightest, next to Bob Costas, Jack was the brightest guy I've ever worked with.
Wow. I imagine you've rubbed shoulders with a lot of ball players, too.
A little bit. I'm not a big collector, autograph hound, or memorabilia. So just a few that I've interviewed, a few.
Who stands out to you, Bob?
My favorite when I lived in California was Vita Blue.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to know him a little bit late in his life, late in my when I was 60 and he was 60. He was about this. And his life after baseball was a lot of ups and downs. But he was always optimistic, just a happy-go-lucky, almost too much kind of guy. And I just love the guy.
Now, was he on the Kansas City Athletics before they moved to Oakland?
No, he didn't make his debut till they had moved to Oakland.
Okay, okay.
He was a big rookie star in 1971 at age 21.
Charlie Finley with the yellow baseballs, and now they're going to Las Vegas.
They're going to Vegas, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, they haven't built a stadium there yet.
No.
Yeah.
But they've left Oakland, and it's a tough story in Oakland because they lost the Raiders and they lost the Athletics, the A's, too. That city lost both of them.
And they lost the Warriors to San Francisco.
That's right.
The Bay.
They could never get the stadium built there that they needed in 20 years. Wow. The voters kept voting it down, and they couldn't get it built. The owners finally said, we got to get out of here. And I've talked to you went to one of the last A's games out there, didn't you?
I went, when the Cardinals played in Oakland this last spring, I said, I got to go. Go to Oakland one more time at Cardinals games. There was one game, there was 9,000. That was a big crowd for them.
Wow. And the crowd would chant, tell the team.
Yeah, that would break out every 2 or 3 innings.
Oh, wow.
So the fans who were there, of course, I've got relatives that are still big A's fans out there. And they, it's what they're crying on the outside and on the inside, really. But they never really were a big draw. The only time they ever had any decent attendance was in the Tony La Russa era, when they were winning the championships then. But and they won 3 in a row championships in the 70s, world championships, and you could walk up at game time, get a ticket right behind home plate.
Serious?
You didn't even look at what the seat was. You just sat wherever you wanted.
Wow.
Because the place was almost empty.
That's crazy.
It's like an old Browns game. I mean, people go to the Sportsman's Park. Where do you want to sit? You sit wherever you want to. Just get a ticket.
Maybe Cardinals this year, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, if you want some trivia, you know what happened 80 years ago right now?
What's that?
Cardinals and Browns played in the World Series.
The
streetcar
44
World
series. Yeah.
That
Wow.
was 80 years ago.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis Entombed. We're talking to Bob Tiemann and Ron Jacober about the 2nd edition Immortal Moments in Cardinals History, famous and forgotten highlights of the St. Louis Cardinals. Question, guys. We're going to go to break in about 5 minutes or so here. 3 minutes here, Mark says. So I'll put that one. I'll let you think about this one. When you're getting all your stuff together, I know the publisher has a certain way they want to do certain things. Like I'm looking at this as the 11 in 2011 Cardinals win series in 7. And do you just give them the layout of the words, the information? Do you give them the research that you've done and they plop the pictures down? And do you say, no, this picture would look better here? Or do they have total, complete control of that?
They pretty much have complete. They just give me a word count.
Okay.
And certain games they could let me go over. And then they fill out the pages with pictures.
Yeah, they're very good at that, by the way. Reedy Press is a wonderful company locally. Mm-hmm. They have about 200 titles currently in print around the country. They don't do too many sports books or too many hard-covered coffee table books, but it's like 100 Things to Do in Dallas Before You Die,
right.
The top 50 restaurants in Chicago. It's that kind of thing they do most of the time. Mm-hmm. But they got involved with sports with us, and they also do a blues.
Dan O'Neill, we had him on about that.
There's a blues book. So they've done a few more sports, but they do a great layout.
It's smart to get you guys involved on that because of the expertise that you both bring to that this particular kind of thing. Wow, this is crazy.
But it's fun to do.
It is.
It really is fun to do. It's hardly. I don't know how Bob feels about it, but it's hardly work.
That's the best way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I like to write, and Bob loves the research, and it's just fun to do.
Did he ever correct you, or you correct him in any of the stuff that was here?
He's corrected me a couple of times.
Yeah, and he's taught me a few things. So slap me around a bit, but
but we've never argued about anything on it. It's just fun to do, and people have really enjoyed it. My favorite one was the 64 Cardinal book. Mm-hmm. Because of the way that season went, and it was one of the most exciting and unusual seasons in Cardinal history. It was. Because they were 10 games out with 30 games to play, 31 games to play, and won the pennant on the last day of the season against the lowly New York Mets, who were in last place. They lost Friday and Saturday to the Mets at Busch Stadium and had to win on Sunday. They won the game on Sunday. Gibson came back on very short rest, and then they wound up beating the Yankees in 7 games in the World Series.
And Philadelphia helped him out with that.
Philadelphia and Cincinnati both collapsed.
Wow.
Both collapsed down the stretch. Right. The fun part for me in that book, the 64 Cardinal book, I was able to interview almost all the guys that were still living when we did that book, and now several of them have died since then. But that was the fun part, talking to them about, and it was amazing the things they remembered, little minute things that they remembered. I remember that Tim McCarver hit a 3-run homer in Yankee Stadium to win Game 5. Win Game 5, and he described this home run like it happened yesterday.
Wow!
And he said it was the single most exciting moment of my career.
Wow!
And he was 21 years old as a catcher for the Cardinals.
Wow!
But it was fun talking to those guys about that kind of thing. Dal Maxfield caught the last out, and the shortstop at the time yelled at him, "Don't drop it." And the second base umpire...
Don't let it hit you in the coconut.
Yeah, it hit you in the coconut. The second base umpire, before the last out, asked Maxie, "If you win this, can I have your hat?" The umpire asked him.
Wow.
So I asked Del, "What happened to the baseball?" He said, "I have no idea."
Wow.
But he said, when I'm running in, the umpire's chasing me, wanting my hat.
Give me my hat.
When they were celebrating.
Yeah.
We're going to hear more stories from Ron and Bob. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. Don't go away. We'll be right back. The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. This is Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune on behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation. In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page. On behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation, this has been Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune.
They're just yakking, folks. They're just
Yakety yak.
They're just yakking in the background there.
What a great time we're having with Bob Tiemann and Ron Jacober about the book Immortal Moments in Cardinals History.
Can I tell you what I love about the book?
Absolutely.
It starts in 1882, and then it moves forward like that. It's not like it's like a hot.
It's not like a novel. You can. There's not a continuous story. Each individual story you can read one or two and put it down and come back and
it just moves along, which I really like about it.
Right.
It's one of my favorite parts of that book. But there's a lot of great. It's a great book, folks. If you like Cardinal baseball, and we're a Cardinal baseball family.
Right, and here's the 1944 series with the Cardinals and the Browns, and we've even done shows on that with our other famous St. Louis Browns historian.
Yeah,
Ed Wheatley.
What's that?
Ed Wheatley.
Ed Wheatley, yeah. Ed's been on like 4 or 5 times.
He's a good friend. He's really a bright guy.
Yeah.
And he's done a great job with Wrestling of the Chase and produced a couple of movies on that for PBS. Yeah, he's.
That's quite a few books for Reedy, too.
Yeah, he has, yeah.
Now, as you've gone through this, and as you've done a lot of history with this, I'm going to ask you players that stand out to you, whether they be pitchers, batters, favorite moments, as you've done a lot of broadcasting and announcing and things like that. What are favorite moments for you as you've been a fan throughout this, as a historian looking with different kind of eyes that maybe a fan like Mark or I would be looking at the game?
Some of the most obscure players, like Vaughn McDaniel was the phenom, age 19 with the Cardinals in 1957.
He shut out the Dodgers how many times?
Well, he shut him out. I think
5. I think
he shut him out. No, that was Larry Jaster in 1966. Also obscure. He shut out the Dodgers, who won the pennant that year, 5 times in one season.
See, I knew he'd correct me because
I was going to say
his memory is so much better than me.
But he enjoyed that. Those are the ones that kind of my niche sort of things.
Because he didn't win very many games that year.
No, he didn't.
No, Vaughn McDaniel, he won 7 games that year and 7 games the next year, and his arm was shot.
But man, he beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, and he pitched the one-hitter, almost got a no-hitter against the Pirates, and so he was. When he first came up, he was quite the.
Yeah, he's quite a phenom. Yeah,
we would pack the house. They didn't sell out very many games, but instead of 15,000, they'd get 25,000 when Vaughn was pitching.
Yeah, Ron.
There are several. I grew up as a Musial fan. I was a right-handed Musial in the backyard, hitting make-believe home runs over the garage. I got to know Stan really well. My late father couldn't believe it when I told him we were on a first-name basis. I used to do commercials for Stan the Man Inc., which was his memorabilia company, and on sports on a Sunday morning on KMOX. And one day the mail arrived in this big, long box. The mailman had it, opened it up, and it was a Musial bat signed to a Ron from your friend Stan Musial. And I got tears in my eyes. My wife said, "It's just a bat." I said, "No, it's not just a bat." But I think Musial was one. I got to know Gibson really well. Gibson was a hard guy to know.
Yeah, he kept people at arm's distance.
Let me tell you, the media didn't talk to him the day before he was going to start. His own teammates didn't talk to him the day he was going to start. He was that intense. But late after he retired, he would do some post-game shows with me on KMOX. And our conversations off the air were much more interesting than on the air. But he told me hair-raising stories about growing up as a black kid in Omaha and what he went through. And one quick story, he loved basketball. He played for the Globetrotters one winter when the Cardinals signed him because they didn't pay him much money, and wanted to play college basketball. His coach tried a number of universities trying to get him a scholarship because he had no money. They thought they had one at Kentucky, and they were about ready to go to school, and they get this letter from the coach at Kentucky saying, "We have filled our quota of Negroes," and it was one, so he didn't get it. So almost at the 11th hour, Creighton, which was in Omaha, knew Bob very well, and they offered him a scholarship. He was the only black guy on the team, and he was the best player on the team. But and I won't go into any great length on this, but his stories about driving from Omaha to St. Petersburg for train was unbelievable. He said we could buy gas anywhere, but couldn't use restrooms. They had trouble finding places to eat. And when he got to St. Petersburg as a rookie, went to the team hotel, and they told him, "You can't stay here," and told the cab driver to take him across town to the black part of St. Petersburg, where all the black players were in a rooming house. And it was stories like that people said, "Well, it was a long time ago." Well, yeah, but it was in my lifetime that it was that way. And so I got to know Brock really well too. I did 2 or 3 television specials, 30-minute, hour-long specials with Lou. And he was so cooperative. He'd do anything I asked him to do. Went to Cooperstown for his induction, and there were several of them. When you're reporting like I was doing, I tried not to get very close to him at those times because you had to be candid. One very quick Gibson story. Late in his career, he got off to a tough start, and I made some mention of it on 10 o'clock news on Channel 5. Wasn't critical, but I made some mention of it. So the next day I walked in the clubhouse, and those guys hated if you were critical and didn't show up. And there were writers that wouldn't do it. I won't name them, but I know who they were. And Gibson saw me from the other side of the locker room, started yelling at me. "There's a ripper with a sharp memory. What have I done for you lately?" And Joe Torre was still here. He said, "I think he wants to talk to you." So I walked over, got into his locker, and as God is my witness, I don't know why I said this, why I had the courage to say it, but I said, "Bob, you're right. I do have a short memory. I can't remember the last time you won a game." Ooh. And he looked at me for about 10 seconds and started to laugh. He said, "I can't remember it either," and gave me a hug. And after that, he was really good to me after that, but he knew it wouldn't intimidate me, and he loved to intimidate writers and broadcasters. But I can't remember the last time you won a game.
And batters, too.
And batters,
too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you tried to show him up, you'd have one right under your chin.
Yeah, what was the story? Was it Hank Aaron and Willie Mays? Willie Mays told Hank Aaron, or Hank Aaron told Willie Mays, "Don't do this when Gibson's pitching," or something like that. Or I can't remember exactly the story, but it was like, "Don't let him. He's gonna do this." And
he used to go to fantasy camps in the wintertime, and some guy I was told showed up. "I'm going to get off Gibson." First pitch went right at his chin.
Wow.
And the guy was afraid to even stand in the batter's box after that.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah, I would be.
To say that you're going to get a hit off Bob Gibson, that's like asking for it.
Even if in a fantasy camp.
Yeah.
That's nervy.
Yeah, the guy who got the last home run against Gibson, when it was last year, 1975, was a guy named Pete Lecoq. And they met up at a fantasy camp once. First pitch plunked him in the butt.
Really, is that? I love it.
Gibby was probably the most incredible or intense athlete I've known, along with a couple of other guys, non-baseball. Brian Sutter with the Blues, and Larry Wilson with the old football Cardinals. Yeah.
Playing with 2 broken arms.
Oh,
yeah, I remember that game.
An interception with two broken hands.
Yeah,
in casts. But Gibson was so intense when he played. He just gave no quarter and asked him that.
So you guys you've covered baseball for a long time. My question deals with, obviously things they morph. Money gets more involved. Fan support gets more involved. Players, they beef up in different ways, so they specialize in certain ways. What has changed about the game the most from your perspective?
The money is really. In 1886, the Browns won the World Series, and each player got $530. Wow. That's because it was a win or take all. They were playing against Chicago, the team that's now the Cubs, and the winning team got the whole gate receipts. So that was $500. Most of those guys were making $2,000 about.
And in today's money, do we know what that would be?
No. But then 2011, the Cardinals winners' share each was 323,000, I think.
Yeah, the money is so big these days, and I would think that it's hard to manage these days because the players are making so much money, far more than the manager's making in most cases, and it's got to be a tough job. They almost have to forget about what money's involved if they can do it, but they can't always do that.
I have so much respect for Bob Gibson. Would get out there and just pitch, and the games were 2 hours. I always loved watching Bob Gibson when he was pitching because the games, they went by quickly. Nolan Ryan, same way. He'd get up there, he'd probably throw 185 pitches, 200 pitches, come back 3 days later, pitch again.
Yeah.
What is it with this? I remember the 64 Cardinals, they had, 3 relievers?
Yeah.
And now we've got more relievers than we do.
You have 13, they carry 13 pitchers.
Yeah.
They never carried 13 pitchers.
Why can't these guys do what?
Because they're trained to go 5 or 6 innings.
Really?
And go as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Guys like Gibson would, despite how hard they threw, they'd keep something back for when they really needed it. Cy Young pitched for the Cardinals for a couple of years, and he was famous for his control, his fastball, but he would be stronger at the end. He was like Gibson. If you didn't get him in the first couple innings, you didn't have a shot because they knew how to pitch the whole game, knew what they needed to save for the end.
I think the worst thing that's happened to baseball is a radar gun, because now they even post the speed of every pitch on the big scoreboard.
Right.
You see it on TV. So there's so much emphasis on how hard they can throw, and that's what they do. They get up, they throw as hard as they can, and they last 5 or 6 innings. But they're trained that way in the minor leagues. Even I'm told now, back into college, if you can go 5 or 6 innings as a starter, you're pretty good. Gibson used to tell me, hell, I threw 160, 170 pitches a game. What's his 100-pitch stuff?
Exactly.
Well, my God, he's doing 100 pitches. We got to get him out of there.
Or less.
I don't know if it was his book or if it was somewhere another book that I had read, but it's, hey, just pitch. You don't have to get them out yourself. There's 8 other guys behind you that are playing the game also.
What a concept.
Yeah.
With a concept. So that's how the game has really changed. Don't you think, Bob, is the way the pitching is?
I'll agree with that, definitely.
You hardly see any complete games anymore.
No.
Cardinals had 0 this year.
You like the pitch clock? You like that pitch clock?
I do. The pitch
I
clock.
think it's improved the game.
The 3 hour and 10 minute 3-2 game is.
That's because everybody has to adjust their gloves after each time they step out of the batter's box.
We used to call it a human rain delay, when they had to adjust the batting gloves. Yeah, it's taken 30 minutes off the games. Baseball did that study. Taking 30 minutes off the average length of a game. So I do like that. And I don't know that the pitchers mind it either, because now they just get up and they get up and throw. And the hitter has to be in the box, because if he's not in there with 10 seconds to go, it's an automatic strike called on him.
Your perspectives on, I want to shift gears a little bit, same on baseball, but it deals with the umpires. And we've got replay, and used to be we didn't have replay, and then we had umpires who, I won't mention any in particular, Angel Fernandez, who always had questions about their calls.
The worst umpire in the history of the game.
Yeah, with all the media things, now we're watching it from every different angle and even above. Probably the only angle we're not watching it is from underneath the ground. What has that done to the game from your perspective?
I think that the umpiring, I'm going like the 1880s. The umpiring was terrible. There was only one umpire, usually some guy who, and the umpires would only last a year or two at best, because they got so much abuse, and no replay, and so the umpiring has gotten so much better. Even by 1900, it was much better. But now the guys are graded for everything, every game.
Yeah.
So they're on their top of their games, really. I think that if they're going to go to an automatic strike zone,
that's going to happen.
That's pretty.
Really?
One of my best friends was an American League umpire for 33 years.
Dave Phillips?
Dave Phillips.
Yeah.
And we would talk about the strike zone. He said, I don't care what the rule book says, what baseball says, every umpire's strike zone is different.
Yep.
So we're going to go to the automated strike zone now. They've been trying it in the minor leagues, and they say it's working pretty well, so we'll see.
Interesting.
There still will be an umpire at home plate, because he's got to make the calls, and he has to relate what the computer tells him.
So the scoreboard operator could put the right count up there.
Right. But the umpires, even since the 60s, I believe, is much improved.
Because there's umpire school now.
There always were.
There has been for a long
really?
time.
Okay.
Since at least World War II, there have been
Okay.
umpire schools. So there's a preferred umpire schools for the big leagues that get most of their graduates. The umpires, like the players, go through the minors, of course, work their way up. And back in the 30s and 40s, it was not uncommon for a ex-player to go right into big league umpiring. And that didn't necessarily make for the best talent in blue.
Yeah.
So.
Do fans expect too much of their teams?
Oh,
in St. Louis,
Always.
definitely.
Yeah, always.
Really?
I guess not in Oakland.
I'll be
Not so much in Oakland. No.
Yeah, I'll be candid with you. I hated to sit in the stands because I was sitting around all the experts around me, and I just had to cover my ears sometimes because everybody knew everything. They knew more than the manager knew. They knew more than the umpires knew. So I never did enjoy in the last 20 years sitting in the stands for that reason. I'd go to the press box, and there were experts up there too, but they weren't nearly as verbal as the people in the stands. But yeah, there's no question fans expect the team to win every game.
Right. Yeah. We're a bit spoiled here in St. Louis, too.
We are, too.
Because we've gone to so many playoffs, and now we got a couple of years, and now everybody's, get rid of everybody.
Yeah.
In
this century, the Cardinals have the fourth best winning record and the fourth best attendance. Now, that's pretty amazing for a market this size. But we've also got probably the fourth most
World Series
discontented fans when we don't win.
Right.
So
I'd like to see a World Series, though. I think we need a couple of more of those. They're starting to ease up towards us now. We've got 11, and I don't know, there's a couple of teams getting close to us.
Now, though, I did a book for Reedy. It came out in 2011 called 10 Rings, about the 10 World Championships, and in 6 months it was outdated.
That's great. That's true.
So we've got to do another one now.
So now there's going to be Reedy's going to come out with a new edition, 12 rings, because I convinced him to put in the 1886 World Series when the Browns beat the Cubs, or the White Stockings they call them. So get my 19th century history.
There you go.
See, one of the things you got to pay attention to these days is broadcast revenue also, because it's it's the motor that drives pro sports, and especially baseball and football too. Baseball is different than the NFL because the NFL shares all the revenue. Baseball is different because there is some shared revenue from national contracts, but usually you reap what you have in your local market. So there's a lot of the Yankees and the Dodgers. Someone figured up what their payroll was. It was over $300 million.
That's crazy.
And so how can Kansas City or Pittsburgh or even St. Louis compete with that? Now, the other thing that's happened is because of the Bally Sports problem, where they went bankrupt and they've been taken over by the gambling company. But we'll see what happens with that, because the Cardinals were expected to get between $60 and $70 million next season for the television rights from Bally. And they don't know whether that's going to happen or not.
A lot of money.
It's really going to affect what they can do in this offseason. It may turn out to be okay, but I think eventually Major League Baseball is going to take over all the broadcast revenue and try to share it equally, at least the national stuff, among all the teams, to try to create some equity, because the smaller markets really struggle to have to compete with the Yankees, the Dodgers, even the Cubs, and the big market teams.
Right. I think of when we used to watch Cardinal baseball games, Channel 5 used to put those on, and Channel 11 did those.
30 games a year is all we did on Channel 5. Now every game's televised.
Yeah, but they were free. And then it was like, no, now you got to buy the Bally Sports thing, and you've got to buy this and buy that. Well. I really sensed that that was a point at which fan enthusiasm started to wane, because they were watching the games and they were involved, and kids could get involved. I don't see as many, maybe it's me, I don't see as many kids playing baseball.
Oh, no, not a chance. Not a chance. Kids playing catch in the yard.
Right.
I can't remember the last time I saw that.
There's still radio, though. Radio is great.
Yeah.
We even do the Cardinals here at KXOK. We do it in Spanish, though. We do the Spanish broadcast. Yeah, which is
why aren't kids more involved? The Cardinals have built these fields,
it's
and
basketball and football.
And phones.
And phones.
There you go.
Social media.
Yeah. Kids, when parents won't let their kids just go out and play. It's got to be something organized. You know?
So the NFL and the NBA are more organized than MLB.
Oh, without question. In terms of broadcast? Oh, without question.
And money, distribution, and everything.
Absolutely. The NFL shares, even the Green Bay Packers get as much broadcast money as the New York Giants or Chicago Bears or Los Angeles Rams, because they share that. Now, it's different because they only play 16, 17 games.
Right.
Not that they're playing 162, but they share their revenue plan is so superior to Major League Baseball. But you're dealing with so many more games, too. That's the problem.
Right.
And the size of the market impacts what you can and can't do broadcast-wise.
Because I remember as kids, man, we'd play stickball, corkball.
Oh.
Because you'd only maybe have 2 or 3 kids in the neighborhood who would get together and, hey, we're going to go up here and play. And
we had a vacant lot near my house, and we go and play it every day.
Right.
But no more.
Did you play as a youngster?
Yeah, we had a street game in our neighborhood, and growing up in New Jersey. And depending on how many kids showed up, what rules you used.
Yeah.
You make them up. We used to play bottle caps.
Right. Yeah, you can really get some nice curves out of bottle
caps. You really
caps.
can. I grew up in Highland, Illinois, which has a tavern on every other corner, and we used to go get the caps from the taverns, the bottle caps off the beer bottles.
Yep.
And you get a pitcher and a catcher and 2 or 3 guys that play out in the field, and you try to hit the thing with a broomstick.
Yeah.
But it was baseball in a way.
And if you can hit a bottle cap with a broomstick, you had a really good eye.
You did.
I would say so. Major League wants you.
Wow, guys, this has just been a great time talking to you all, and have the greatest respect for what you've done and what you will continue to do. We've been talking to Bob Tiemann and Ron Jacober about the 2nd edition Immortal Moments in Cardinals History, famous and forgotten highlights of the St. Louis Cardinals.
It's available at all the good bookstores and on Amazon and anywhere you got a good book.
Or you can go to Reedy Press. And I was also going to mention that you had a book signing the other night out at, Barnes & Noble. You were out there, West County, yesterday. Or a couple days ago. But you're going to be December 15th at the Barnes & Noble in Fenton. That's free. That's December 15th, Sunday from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m.
We have one this Friday, too.
Also,
it's not on that list.
Barnes & Noble's opening a new store in the Galleria.
Really?
Really.
And
it's not. I went by there yesterday, and it's not open yet. They were filming some promo and filling. We may be the day they open. I don't know.
We could be, but they've asked to have some authors there. We're going to do that on Friday from 1 to 3.
Okay,
that's exciting.
It is.
A bookstore opening up. Usually closing down, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know. That's fantastic.
I understand it's a smaller version of the Barnes & Noble, like in West County and whatever.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good.
It's your typical mall storefront rather than a big.
You guys want to stick around for our
what a fun time
end of the show stuff?
What a
here?
fun time here.
Mark, I'm going to do the word of the day before you do your day of the day. So our word of the day is garnish. Garnishing food or drink, adding decorative or tasty touches.
Or your game.
Yeah, put a little garnish on that ball as it came into home plate. Oh, what was that? Oh, go to the umpire and have it checked out. Right. So what days of the day do you have, Mark?
This goes well with our guest. It's National Authors Day.
Ooh, okay.
So they get that. A National Cook for Your Pets Day. Who cooks for their pets?
I don't.
Do you cook for your
pets?
pet?
I just pour it out of the box.
A National Vinegar Day.
Oh, I hate vinegar.
World Vegan Day.
I hate vegan.
Did you? I never got that ever. I never got that either. I never in a million years.
Show me some meat.
That's right.
Nothing wrong with something like that. Let's see. We have National Deviled Egg Day.
Oh, I love deviled eggs.
I don't even know if I could make a deviled egg.
That's a mayonnaise, mustard, and some eggs, and you're ready to roll.
It's hardly brain surgery. I think you could handle that.
All right.
Yeah, I don't. I've never made deviled eggs myself because I'm just eat it right out of the shell.
Yeah, right. How about Broadcast Traffic Professionals Day? This is your Congress at work.
These days that are special.
Approving these days. So, I mean, you got to get to work. I never understood, though, they do traffic on TV in the morning?
I've said the same thing.
Have you?
If you're in your car, you're not watching
TV.
television.
No.
Who are you doing it for? Your
I-
wife or your husband that you left at home?
I don't get that.
Yeah, maybe before you leave.
I do watch it before I leave. Yes.
Do you? Okay.
See,
Get
we
an
used to-
idea.
If I go out in the morning, now that I'm retired, though, I don't have to worry.
You used to have a guy named Officer Don Miller.
Yeah.
Oh,
And once who flew the
remember.
helicopter. Remember?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Don Miller. Forgot about
Yeah.
him. Yeah. National Bison Day. You like bison?
I do. It's good for you, too.
Is that right?
It's pretty lean, yeah.
All right. Okay.
I ate kangaroo also.
I've never
in
had that.
Australia with the Olympics. and
What?
It's pretty lean too. It
Is that right?
doesn't taste like chicken either.
I love it. Okay. That's what deserves it.
Hey, Mark, I'm so old, I once got a phonograph record on a cereal box.
Yeah,
You remember that?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. We had to cut those out and put them on.
And
Yeah.
forget world peace, visualize using your turn signal.
There's a. That's.
You know, I hate people who can't let go of the past. Debt collectors are the worst.
I had to put up with this guys all the time. Just to let you know.
If someone from the 1950s suddenly appeared today, what would be the most difficult thing to explain to them about life today? I possess a device in my pocket that's capable of accessing the entirety of information known to man. I use it to look at pictures of cats and get into arguments with strangers.
That's a good one.
Good judgment, it comes from experience. And experience, that comes from poor judgment.
Wow.
That's actually a good one. A woman walked into the kitchen to find her husband stalking around with a fly swatter. Well, what are you doing, she asks. Hunting flies, he replied. Oh, killed any, she said. Yep, 3 males, 2 females, came the answer. Intrigued, the wife asked, how can you tell them apart? Husband said 3 were on a beer can, 2 were on the phone.
Wow. That's a tough room.
I really
here.
think it's time to take the warning labels off of everything and let stupidity work itself out of the gene pool. And lastly, let's see here.
Thank goodness. Okay.
This woman is accused of attacking her husband with several of his guitars. The judge asked, first offender? She replied, no, first a Gibson, second offender.
Oh, man. Wow, you are just in prime form today. I know it.
That's all for this hour, folks. We thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can listen to additional shows at stlintune.com. Consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to grow. I want to thank Bob Berthasell for our wonderful theme music. We also want to thank our guest, Bob Tiemann, and Ron Jacober, and co-host Mark Langston. We thank you, folks, for being part of our community of curious minds. St. Louis in Tune is a production of Motif Media Group and the U.S. Radio Network. Remember to keep seeking, keep learning, walk worthy, and let your light shine. For St. Louis in Tune, I'm Arnold Stricker.